What's up, guys? Hey, welcome to another video on our programming in the C language. So today we're going to be checking out in lesson 4 the loops. So there's many different loops that are in it. Basically what this allows us to do as programmers is allow code to execute over and over and over and over till something happens. Okay, so maybe you have to wait for someone to type the right thing. Maybe you have to wait for something to happen a certain way, or maybe you just want to count something. Maybe how many times somebody presses a button or something. So you need a way of having the code execute more than once. Instead of just top down, you want to maybe have an if then or something that is constantly checking for something or whatever. That's what we're looking at in loops today. So let's go ahead and get started in how to program loops using the C language. So we have 3 different basic types of loops. We've got the for loop, we have the do while loop, and we have the while loop. Okay, and we'll go into each one of these of how we do it. So let's take a look and dive right into the code and check out a simple loop. And what we're going to look at is the for loop. All right, so we've got our main function. We're going to be asking the user, I'm going to get my little pointer out here. We're going to be asking we will now count to 10. Okay, we're not asking, but we're going to be telling how to count to 10. So we're going to let the computer count to 10. All right, and so to do this, we're going to create a for loop. Now, how a for loop works is you're going to obviously start with for. The syntax of it is you're going to declare a variable to increment. Okay, in the very beginning. So we declare an integer and variable name I. We generally use things like I, J, K, you know, but it can be anything you want. You could say num. It's totally up to you. You're just declaring a variable here. But we're declaring a variable I and we're initializing it as 0. Okay, so, and that's very important. You can initialize it at whatever. You could initialize it at 5 and have it count from 5 to 10 or whatever you wanted to do. Also, then we end that with a semicolon. Okay, so we've done the variable declaration. Okay, now we're going to move on to the decision that it's going to make. So it's kind of almost like an if then. Basically, we're going to move on to this part where we're going to say, as long as I is less than or equal to 10, and I chose 10 because I wanted it to count to 10. Okay, this is the decision. So as long as I is less than 10, we're going to do I++. Now that's a quick and dirty way of adding 1 to I++, you can use that anywhere. You could even say in normal code, you could say, you know, variable X, let's say ++, and that will add 1 to the variable X. Okay, we'll get into more variable manipulation stuff later on in other deals, but just know for now, if you do an I++, that just adds 1 to I. Now, in the context of a loop, it will add it every time the loop runs. So for instance, this should come into here as the code executes, and code always executes from top to bottom. Okay, so we come through here, we print out that we're going to count to 10, and then we come in here and we say, all right, I is going to be set to 0. Is I less than or equal to 10? Well, if I is 0, yes, it's less than or equal to 10. So it's going to execute this loop. Okay, this loop's going to come through and it's going to say the number is, and then we're going to print out the number, the variable I. See, we're going to print that out. And then it's going to hit this bottom curly brace and loop back to the top. And when it does that, it has added 1 to the variable. Excuse me, I'm sorry. In the very beginning, before it executes this, excuse me, I need to make a correction. Before it executes this, it adds 1 to the variable. So it checks initially in the very beginning when it runs, this is 0. Is 0 less than or equal to 10? Yes, it is. So we're going to add 1 to it, and then we'll execute this code. And then when it wraps back around, we check again. Now, this time we're going to ignore the initialization because it's not the first time we've ran through the loop. So now we're going to look at it. The I should be a 1 now. So we go 1 is 1 less than or equal to 10? Yes, it is. So we add 1 to the variable I and we execute the code. And this is going to keep looping until we get to the point where I is going to be 11. Once it's 11, 11 is now greater than or equal to 10. So now the loops, it's going to skip. It's not going to run this code, and it's going to just jump out of the loop and continue with whatever code is after this final curly brace. All right. So let's go ahead and take a peek at what that code looks like with the compiler. So we're going to check out, I don't remember what I called all this, the do while loop, or the for next loop. Sorry, my bad. We're looking at for. So here's our loop, okay, and we're going to count to 10. So there's our counting, there's our initialized variable, there's our decision that we're going to do, and then what we're going to do at the decision, which is add 1 to it. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute this and see what it's like. So there we go. So we will now count to 10. So there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. So that was it counting and printing the variable I as it was going. So that shows you that it does increment. So you can see it incrementing from 0 all the way to 10. And why did it start at 0? Because we initialized at 0. If I'd initialized it at 1, it would have started at 1 and counted to 10, or however we wanted to do that. Okay. Simple, simple, simple. So that's how you do a for next loop. For next loops are great if you need to, I don't know, do certain things in code a certain number of times. So if I need to, maybe let's say I've used them for waiting so many seconds, right? You don't want to put in, a delay command. Let's say you're doing Arduino or something of like, 200,000 milliseconds because you need to wait 200 seconds. You would create a for loop that counts from 0 to 200 and you just delay 1,000 milliseconds each time. Well, then it sits there and loops and delays 1,000 milliseconds, then loops again, delays 1,000 milliseconds, and it'll do that 200 times. So there's your 200 milliseconds. Okay. So that's how a for loop is very, very useful. Okay. So let's move on to the next one, shall we? We're going to be looking at the do while loop. So do while loops, or do loops, as they can be shortened and called do loops. It basically does an evaluation. Okay, so first thing first, we declare some numbers, let's say. So what is your favorite color? Or I think I said color. That should be favorite number. So in order to do this, we're going to ask, what is your favorite number? Okay, and then we're going to also give the stipulation of type 0 to exit. Okay, so that's going to be important. So what we're going to do is we're going to start reading information from the user, okay, until we get something that we like. Okay, so first off, we're going to ask them, we're going to read that in, and then, what's your favorite number? Okay, is what we're going to do. And we want to do that over and over and over and over. Okay, so if the number is not equal, so that's our not equal sign. If it's not equal to 0, so that's our stipulation for ending, right? If it's not equal to 0, then we're going to store that number. And then down here, we're going to say while num is not equal to 0, because what that means is it will loop until num is equal to 0. So this will loop indefinitely. It'll keep on going until that number is not equal to 0. So once you type in a 0, then it will break out of this and it'll say your favorite number was, and then it'll print out the favorite number. So essentially it's going to, every time you keep typing in a new number and not a 0, it'll just keep updating this favorite number. Okay, so that way if you change your mind, maybe, I don't know. This is just a demo, okay? It's not supposed to make practical sense. All right, so let's go ahead and see what that looks like code-wise. So let's go back in here and we're gonna check out the do loop, do while, and there we are. So here's our code that we showed. So we'll be compiling. I've already compiled it actually, and instead of viewing it, we will execute it with the /. So give it a second to go. All right, what's your favorite color? This must have been old. Let's fix that, shall we? Do while. I didn't even look at that. I was first going to start with color, but then it would employ some stuff that would have been hard to deal with. So let's do number, shall we? Give me just a second to fix it. All right, so now we'll compile it. GCC-O, do while exe, do while. Let's see. All right, so now let's give that a shot. So that should say something a little bit better. Okay, what's your favorite number? There we go. That's better. So we're gonna say, let's say it's 5. Enter. It's gonna ask me it again because I had it in there twice. Ah, I should have done it a different way. So we're gonna have 7. Enter. Okay, and we can just keep typing it. But you type 0 to exit. So we typed 100 as our last one. Number was 100. Okay. So like I said, this isn't supposed to be practical. This is just supposed to illustrate the fact that you can do it. So if I type in a 2 and then a 0, we got a 2. Okay, so that's what it is. Now, the important thing to remember when looking at a do-while loop is the evaluation happens at the end. Okay, so it's going to execute the code before it checks, you know, what's going on. So you have to keep that in mind. If you have something that you are wanting to evaluate, or basically you're wanting something that you want to stop running whenever you run into something, you got to make sure and keep in mind that the loop does the check after it has executed the code. It does the check here on a do while. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the third and final one, and that is the while loop. Okay, the while loop is a fairly simple loop, and it basically is the reverse of the do loop. Okay, so back to our example of what your favorite number is. It does the checking first, and then it does the processing. So it's going to come down here and it's going to say while this number is, you know, still good or whatever, and it's going to keep going. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what that looks like in once we run it. So here we go again. So we're going to check out the while loop this time. So there's our loop. There's our while with our number in it and whatnot, and our evaluation. So we're going to ask you what your favorite number is, and we're going to keep doing that until you type the 0. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that. So let's go while loop.exe. All right, so what's your favorite number? It's going to be 7, I guess. 0. Favorite number is 7. All right, let's do 10, 0. Favorite number is 10. And now let's just do a whole bunch of them. And it will loop indefinitely until you type a 0. Okay, so, and the thing, like I said, to remember with this one is the fact that it does the evaluation first. So that could be the decision making aspect of what you're doing, is whether you want to evaluate before or after you execute the code. Okay, depending on what you're doing, and that would help you decide between a do or a while. So we do, I use while loops a lot because I like having the evaluation first, just the way I code, but I have used do loops before in the past as well. They all have their place. So guys, I hope this video was helpful to you guys for understanding how to loop through code, as well as I know the Arduino definitely has a loop that goes and things like that that's in it. It definitely uses loops. So I hope that gives you a little bit better understanding of how loops work. So great way of gathering data from the user, or having a system that just is continually running, continually checking and doing things and firing things off as it's checking and running in its loop. So guys, hope that was informative for you, and thank you so much for being my patrons. Thank you so much for your support. Please share these videos with your friends, at least not the video, but share the Patreon page, please, with your friends and whatnot. And have them come be a part of what we're doing here, because I've got lots more videos coming. I got some videos on electricity, on basic circuit principles and things like that. I think I'll even do some networking videos on how to do networking and stuff like that. Some really cool stuff that I have that it's going to be exclusive for you guys, my patrons. So definitely share the Patreon page with your friends and whoever that you feel would benefit from this. Get as many people as we can, because that way it helps support the channel, helps provide this information. And like I've said in multiple videos, it's not cheap usually to get, you know, and I'm making it very affordable for everyone. So definitely have people check it out. Join up on if you like what I'm doing and all that jazz. So guys, I will see you in the next video.